by his network's insistence that the election was stolen by Joe Biden, he sees something else nefarious in the idea of having National Guardsmen in Washington for the inauguration.
Woman may have been trampled to death by the crowd. As of tonight, those are the 3 casualties we can confirm from the riot at the Capitol building on January 6th. In response to that, our leaders have assembled the largest military presence in Washington in all of American history during peacetime. In 1864, as the Civil War raged on the other side of the Potomac, and Americans died every day in large numbers in battle, there were fewer federal troops protecting Washington, D.C. than there are tonight. And it's truly a national force. The Guardsmen you see in Washington have come from every state in the Union, as well as from Puerto Rico. And the question is, why is that? There's no practical or operational justification for it. For decades, Washington, D.C. has had the highest per capita law enforcement presence in the country, and one of the highest in the world. So there was no need to fly in troops from Alaska to keep the city safe. But keeping the city safe was hardly the point of the exercise. The murder rate in the District of Columbia has risen with terrifying speed over the last 6 months. Men, women, and children shot to death in the streets. But no one in charge seems to care about that or even notice their deaths. So no matter what they are telling you, those 26,000 federal troops are not there for your safety. Instead, unmistakably, the Democratic Party is using those troops to send the rest of us a message about power. We're in charge now. We run this nation from Honolulu to our colony in the Caribbean and everything in between, very much including where you and your family live. Do not question us. Men with guns enforce our decrees. We control the Pentagon. And indeed, they do control the Pentagon. Republicans have spent years ignoring the leftward drift of our officer corps, but we can't ignore it now. The mask is off. Our military leadership, the very same generals who howled at the idea of deploying American troops to stop an invasion of our southern border, those same generals sent tens of thousands of soldiers with rifles to Washington purely as a show of force on behalf of the political party they support. And once they did that, they then allowed Democratic politicians to degrade and politicize the military itself. Democrats in Congress demanded that the troops sent to Washington this week submit to a political purity test, ideological vetting, as they put it, to make certain that every soldier professed loyalty to the new regime. Not loyalty to our country, not loyalty to our Constitution, but loyalty to the aims of a specific political party. Nothing like that has ever happened in America. And just a few months ago, it would have been unimaginable.
Okay, first of all, nothing like that has ever happened in America, and nothing is still, as of today, has happened like that. There was no, the questioning of these soldiers was not as to their fealty to Joe Biden. It was, are you sure you're not a white supremacist? Are you sure you're not an extremist, like the ilk that Tucker Carlson and his network encouraged to believe that the election was stolen? In fact, what's amazing about this is he's continuing on with the exact same project that drove people to attack the Capitol here. He is continuing on with the same level of paranoia and conspiracy theory. Now he is saying both, on one hand, that the Democrats ideologically control the military because they refuse to go down to the border. Laughable. And B, they also disregard the military simultaneously. So they both control and disparage the military. And what is going on here, I think, from a symbolic perspective, is the idea, because we know how much Donald Trump tried to politicize the military. We know this, and this is an attempt for our government to say, we all support a peaceful transition of power, and we are not going to let anybody to continue to interfere with it. And when Tucker Carlson characterizes this as some type of oppression of free Americans, that you cannot speak and you cannot talk, as opposed to recognizing, and of course, he starts off the clip by minimizing only 3 deaths, because the other 2 deaths don't count, but only 3 deaths, as if you needed more deaths on a storming of the Capitol building to justify why people might be concerned, particularly with what we have seen from these right-wing paramilitary groups talking about, their invasions. It's unbelievable. And I should also add, this is a network which came to a legal settlement with the family of Seth Rich, who they touted as having been possibly assassinated by some combination of the DNC and Hillary Clinton's, octopus of killers. Essentially, they settled with the Seth Rich's family for millions of dollars for what they did to the Rich family. But part of the settlement, and we only know this as of this weekend, because part of the settlement was that they could not reveal this settlement happened prior to the following the election.
Curious.
Very odd position for a media outlet to take, that they don't want this information that the Seth Rich, that they are conceding to the complete fiction of the Seth Rich conspiracy, that they haven't conceded that. They don't want that out before the election. That is a very odd position to take for a company that ostensibly doesn't have a stake in the election of somebody. I mean, this guy is so incredibly disingenuous, and it is so dangerous what he's continued to allow to say. At this point, you would think there would be a slight amount of regret in the minds of folks like Tucker Carlson. And frankly, where's George Herbert? Where's George Bush, W. Bush, who supposedly, had a problem with what Donald Trump was doing? Why is George Bush meeting with this guy for dinner if he is not on board with ginning up this type of conspiracy?
Well, I mean, Tucker Carlson, he's so against the usage of the military, of members of the police being used to advance the agenda of one political party's ends. I mean, they are supposed to be a neutral force, which is why I'm sure he stood up to the claims from the right wing and from his own network that the Insurrection Act should be used on Black Lives Matter protesters over the summer, or when Trump gassed peaceful protesters outside so we could get a photo op. I mean, it's so disingenuous that he is pretending to clutch his pearls about this when there's no evidence to support it, and when there was actual politicization of forces that use deadly weapons, not the military of itself, but the surrounding institutions. Nothing. He said nothing about that.
Nothing. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk just a little bit about some appointees that Joe Biden has picked and is considering, and maybe how you can help Joe Biden make a good choice when it comes to some of these DOJ appointments. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back in just a moment. So the American Prospect, they've been crushing it as of late. We've had David Dayen on, I think it was last week or maybe the week before. They had a report on Friday in conjunction with The Intercept. It was confirmed and expanded upon on Sunday by Reuters that Joe Biden is leaning toward two attorneys with deep experience advising monopoly platforms to head the antitrust division at the Department of Justice. I mean, this is, when you talk about the revolving door and you talk about one of the problems, regulatory capture, this is what, this couldn't be a better example. Now, again, Joe Biden has not chosen these people yet, and one gets the sense that somebody's putting up a trial balloon. If these stories get out, you can, we will put a link at majority.fm to a petition that is being pushed by Public Citizen to prevent these people from sitting in these positions. One is Renata Hess, former Justice Department official, so she has some experience, worked under the Obama administration. She also worked with Ted Cruz defending Google as a defendant 10 years ago. She helped shepherd the Amazon Whole Foods merger. I mean, we're talking about two of the biggest platforms here that have been engaged in what a lot of people think is antitrust violations for years.
And certainly Amazon has engaged in abusive workplace practices. So we're talking about
checks
Amazon
off every box.
The worst of the worst here.
She represented several pharmaceutical companies and other clients in antitrust cases. She is now the leading contender for the Assistant Attorney General for Antitrust. This is according to the Prospect and the Intercept on that Friday. There's another attorney, Juan Ortega, another Obama Justice Department veteran, who defended J.P. Morgan Chase and several other financial firms in fraud cases and represented AT&T in its merger with Time Warner, also being considered. Now, look, I come from a long line of lawyers. I think that lawyers should be able to represent whomever they want in private practice. However, to handle these many cases, protecting against antitrust, the fact is that you are way more than likely to be inclined to seeing antitrust in a specific way.
You have relationships with the executives that you're supposed to be regulating. I mean, this is more than just revolving door. This is especially in the tech realm, because of the amount of donations that big tech funnels to Democratic politicians. You can only see this as corruption, in my view.
And we'd say that a couple of years ago, apparently Hess seemed to dismiss antitrust concerns from Google's control of the online search market. She said in a Federal Trade Commission hearing, when she was presumably not representing, the reason why people use Google search generally is because they like it better. Well, that may be the case, but when you push everything else out, I mean, it's just, look, we've talked about this many times on the show. There is a pre-Robert Bork / Ronald Reagan perspective on what antitrust and monopoly means and what is problematic about it. One is a measure of antitrust just as does it provide cheap goods for consumers? And the other is, does antitrust provide an even playing field for competitors in a market? Does it protect citizens? Does it diminish corporate power? And it's the latter that I think we desperately need to reinstitute in this country. And you don't need to change any laws. It really comes down to personnel. Now, there's another apparently candidate, Jonathan Cantor, who has co-chaired the antitrust department in a large corporate firm, but has helped file suits against some of these big companies for their antitrust violations. So, like I say.
Yeah, and just quick point, the Democrats can't clutch their pearls about Trump's Twitter violations and social media violations and the spread of misinformation on Facebook, which is a massive problem, in other platforms, and then simultaneously appoint people who are not going to break them up. Those are inconsistent views, and it's based in corruption and donations and a way too cozy relationship between the Democratic Party and big tech.
Without a doubt. On the upside, great pick for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Yeah. Biden
will nominate Rohit Chopra. He was at the, I think it was the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, an Elizabeth Warren acolyte, and as you know, she established that committee in the first place. So, but if folks want to find that petition to pressure Joe Biden on those antitrust things, we've got a link at majority.fm. If you missed any part of this show, check us out on Peacock. You can find us on the Choice app, 5 p.m., 10 p.m., and then on demand. Check it out. All right. We will see you tomorrow. And for those of you who are sticking around for the fun half of the program, we will see you right now. You're still seeing us.
Hello.
The magic of video.